Welcome back to Grub and Grace. I am Mark Flower, and Zach Kidder is back on deck for the second half of our discussion as we get into apologetics, the faith office, and the idolization of Trump. Buckle up as we get into part 2 of He Gets Us with Zach Kidder.
Oh, didn't you say McDonald's Playlands?
McDonald's Playlands. I think the bad news horse got stuck in there.
Hey, do you want to just take it?
Should I just jump into apologetics?
Yeah, man.
Maybe we could just kind of jump in with the whole Paula White thing, the Office of Faith, or the Department of what was it? Department of Faith?
I have
Office
notes
of Faith?
on that.
Is it Office of Faith?
I think it's Office of Faith. Yeah.
So speaking of
Officer Faith.
Officer Faith. So
just reporting. I'm Officer Faith. Oh man, there's a lot of ties into so many things.
So recent events. So of course, Trump appointed a new office within the White House called the Office of Faith, starring Paula White. Was it Paula White? Was it her name? Yeah, Paula White.
That's correct. Paula White, not the Apostle Paula White. That's Apostle Paul. Not to be confused with Apostle Paul, who was originally Saul and got waylaid on the way to Damascus. He was laid down in a bed of ice because we don't have the end of the book of Acts. We don't know what happened to Paul. Was he martyred? It's kind of like Hitler. Did he commit suicide or did he go to Argentina? I believe, Mark, and this is from credible sources. In fact, I've got a printout right here from alexjones.com that says that Paula White is the Apostle Paul.
I think he had a sudden heart attack, just like in Monty Python, Quest for the Holy Grail. It's the castle of...
We're Knights of the Round Table. That's a silly place. So Paula White said something that kind of stuck out to me, and I'm wondering if it resonates with you and gave you a lot of nice warm feelings. And one of them was, where I go, God goes. When I'm standing at the White House, that becomes holy ground.
Sure.
I think she said that before she became the Office of Faith, but this is like from her church pulpit.
I've seen that clip before.
I don't know if you heard that clip. Did you see that one?
Clip.
Okay, great.
Good for her.
Isn't that just wonderful? Like, don't you just feel the warm fuzzies from that? Like,
I just feel the warm fuzzies for her. Good job.
So yeah, that's an interesting turn for the something. I don't know. Well, of all people, like I was really hoping for Jim Baker, who's I think he's senile now, but I think he still has this show in Branson, the Jim Baker Hour.
I think Jim Baker had Paula White on his show.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Jim
Did she eat
Baker!
Any of the buckets? Welcome to Gray Street. We're going to be drinking some buffalo broccoli cheese soup from the buckets.
Basta.
Why don't they get the Basta lady to be the Office of Faith representative? And this is probably a first one. I'm not, okay, I don't know. I know there's been advisors, like, for example, didn't Billy Graham advise, like, 64 different presidents from, like, the 1800s? Because that guy lived, like, he's, like, 200 years old, right? Mm-hmm. No, but they've had a lot of people, like, spiritual capacities, like, we want to bring in this kind of, like, this kind of, like, president, I don't know what you want to call it. But, so Paula White, I don't know much about her. I honestly kind of just learned a little bit recently from just seeing her come in that role, and I'm not too surprised. Like, there's just like a huge movement around Trump over all the presidents that have been in our lifetime, right? From like of like the Republican presidents, I should say, like George Bush, Mitt Romney, who was the nominee, and whoever else, all the other guys. But like, you didn't see like the crazy movement around George W. Bush for all these like. These prophets are like, we're going to prophesy, maybe they were and we just didn't hear them because it's kind of pre-internet. Now we're kind of in this other era. But like, yeah, what are your takes on that? And what do you make of?
Well, Paula White, her whole role, she's going to be teaming up with someone, I forget who it was, but they're basically going to crack down on anti-Christian rhetoric. I don't know even what that looks like. I don't think they even really verified like what that looks like. I don't even know how you classify anti-Christian rhetoric. Do Christians who have differing viewpoints on what they think, is that classified as anti-Christian rhetoric? I don't know. Nobody knows.
Right.
So
like if you have a Catholic position on something and, someone else says, oh no, I'm, in the charismatic camp and that's completely contradictory. So I'm just by that very nature, that seems like that'd be suspect. Anyway.
And it just kind of goes into this whole idea of like apologetics and the idea of like, what's the term? But just thinking that your interpretation is the correct interpretations and everyone else is fundamentalism. I think that's what the term is. But thinking that you have the correct one and that everyone else is wrong or they're misguided. So I think there's a lot of danger in that.
Well, in all these like platforms, like my biggest question is like, all right, well, what's the gain here? Like, why manipulate? Why take anything and be like, this is what we're going to run with? And to me, the common denominator is, well, if we say things in a certain way and curate this kind of like intrigue, using faith or using belief, or you could use anything like any sort of messaging. Like now you have people that are like, okay, this guy is beyond, and I don't know, like there's just like a certain type of like, oh, he can't be wrong now. Fundamentalism in our country and just like what we, what we're told we've come from. This is a Christian nation is kind of the thing that gets thrown around a lot, or that's been kind of etched into our understanding, like based on a couple of things. Like, okay, yeah, the founders had Christian beliefs. There was some deists mixed in there. Obviously, even before that, predating that, you got Puritans and Quakers coming into the fold and all these things, and truly probably were people moving in. All that to say, my question is, why is it that in all of this, like whether you're talking about the Trump administration right now, or like where we're at with politics right now, or what our belief is in the founding and all that, I guess my biggest question is, what is the motive behind using faith to try to accomplish a political situation, or like to take on, whatever it is. Like I have to think about that thought. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of separation of church and state. It's the idea that if you think that things need to be done a certain way, and especially once you start bringing into like an authoritarian kind of like government, and kind of like what you're seeing going on right now, once you start bringing faith into the picture, you bring in this divine intervention that God ordained it, and it shuts down any dialogue about whether what's right and wrong, because whoever has this divine inspiration, which in the case Trump is elevated in this, no one can argue against him then, because it's all from God. So it's by bringing in this office of faith, it's almost ushering in a very authoritarian kind of establishment of government. So
yeah, right. So if you can't be questioned, or if you can't be scrutinized for that matter, like based on policy decisions that you're making and you're representing the people, yeah. I don't know. It seems like a recipe for disaster, and already has been. I think, like, for example, like a lot of people that I know personally are taken by the man, the myth, the legend of Trump. And there's been quite a setup and quite an orchestration going on with that. And I think it's really interesting. It's like, if it weren't so real and so like in our face, I'd maybe find it more comedic. And I used to think Trump was really funny. Like there's a little bit of a hilarity to it, just because I was like, oh, what in the heck? Who is this guy? Like, what in the heck? But, things have gotten a little bit more ripened and a little bit more seasoned and kind of honed in. And the script, or the world stage, whatever you want to call it, has erupted into what it is now. And yeah, what I'm less alarmed of is the spectacle of like, okay, he's going to do X, Y, and Z, and all those things could be very real and are real. Like there's some real world consequences happening on with like foreign policy. And that's been going on for eons now, like as far as us always being at war and bombing everyone and doing terrible things to our neighbors, loving our neighbors, using the founders, anyway, using the whatever Christian war theory, whatever you want to do to like suggest that it's okay to bomb millions of people. Mm-hmm. But okay, what the biggest concern I have is not just that. I mean, like I can see it. To me, it seems just blatantly evil. like weighing that out with scripture and saying, okay, this is what needs to happen. You need to elect these guys that do that. No. And it contradicts my personal views on my, I guess you want to call them, my understandings of like our political system, which I see as pretty hijacked. I don't see a lot of like, this is an authentic, autonomous, like an actual democratic government that's just doing the will of the people. And it's a democratic republic, and everyone's elected, everyone there. It's all perfectly, it's somehow functioning. It's got its problems, but like that to me is like so 1970s. That's like my father-in-law's, or the people of that era who are, and sadly, a lot of millennials, a lot of people our age too, who are like, oh yeah, no, this is all normal. This is it. This is what you're seeing is, we just got to vote the next guy in and figure it out. Like, to me, I'm just going to cut through the BS here. To me, I don't buy that. I think that it's a little bit more controlled, and we're kind of just being strung along. And yes, I don't think, like, for example, did I go out and vote? Yeah, I voted. I went and voted for local stuff. I still kind of have some hope. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of bombling around, pushing buttons, like, okay, let's get my city council. Anyway, but like what gets me going is the people who have turned it into like a religious fascination. And like a lot of it is like my close friends. I have a lot of friends that are just taken by Trump. They think that he is literally doing the will of God and that he has been put in by God. And I ask them this question, show me in scripture, because that's what I subscribe to. I believe in Jesus, I believe in the gospel, and I believe that that this has truth to it, and that all scripture is God-breathed us and is useful for all these different aspects, teaching, rebuking, getting into the nitty-gritty, and asking really uncomfortable things in these spaces, every space of all humanity, all time, the whole timeline. And it was useful in Jesus' time, and it's useful now. We're given instruction like, hey, you have this ability. So when the church gets, in my opinion, hijacked to the nth degree like it is, it's freaking scary. Mm-hmm. And where I come from, and I'm sure you and I could probably look at each other now and say, yeah, we have our differences on some stuff that probably to this day is probably pretty petty. I'm just guessing, like we could, sure, we could probably duke it out on some things, on different things, and it doesn't really matter. To me, it's like, I see your heart and I know where I'm at. And like, I think we just want to know, hey, what's good? What is that question? Like, what really matters? Like, what are we doing here? And how do we, maybe you could finish my thought. I don't know. Like how do we do the right thing? That's my question.
Yeah. I mean, I have some thoughts on that. So my thought is those who have power have responsibility to help or use that to help others. For example, like we are called to feed the hungry. The U.S. was feeding the hungry until Trump dissolved the USAID, the USAID. And, there's plenty of criticism against the program of USAID, but it was giving out $20 billion in humanitarian aid every year around the world. So since October of 2023, USAID has given more than $2.1 billion in assistance to Palestinians through food programs and supporting schools and hospitals. It has been argued that it may be one of the largest organizations aimed at reducing poverty across the entire world. But of course, Trump has reduced the 10,000 staff members to around 300 and completely curtailed the funding of it. So it's stuff like that. It's like, what can we do to help, and what can we do locally? I think there's plenty to do, and I think it kind of goes in with that whole relational aspect of Jesus, getting out in your community, understanding where people's needs are instead of, sitting at your house in your bubble watching Netflix. I get out, and that's one of those things that I'm struggling with too. And I recently just had that conversation with my spouse that I think that calling has really been tugging at my heart to really get out and do that. And she's like, I think that's really good. There's programs that you can do that. And, there's, we have a few friends that probably would be happy to jump on, out there with you and do some of that stuff. Yeah. And I was specifically talking about, like homeless and getting to know like people and not just doing like the food kitchens, but getting out and actually like getting to know people, finding what their needs are, like, helping those individual people that you're interacting with, and not just like, the homeless outreach, but even you got like single mothers, you've got the marginalized people. So like the LGBTQ plus community. So you got gay and trans people that are regularly, looked down on and pushed to the side, especially by religious organizations and religious people. I'd say get down there and they might not have like a tangible need, but like with goods, food, and clothing and all that stuff, like I'm talking about with like homeless or maybe single mothers or something like that. But I'm talking about they might need like emotional support. They might just need someone to listen to them and hear them out and hear what they're struggling with on a day-to-day basis. Get into communities that are outside of your bubble. Get into, we're both white, male, cis hetero people. Get into communities that are non-white, like people of color communities. Befriend people so that you can hear their stories and get to know them, so you can have a more broad and colorful experience of an understanding of their experience, and so that you can put yourself in their shoes and have empathy. I know lately the word empathy has garnered a lot of political attention, and it's been kind of
really?
For some reason the word empathy and compassion have, especially on a very right wing, especially the inauguration, there was Marianne Edgar Buddy. She talked about having compassion and empathy on the foreigner and specifically like the LGBTQ plus community. So basically just marginalized people. And there was a whole lashback saying that there was the sin of empathy, and which is funny because there's nothing in the Bible, and it's by religious people that are saying this, that there's a sin of empathy. There's nothing in the Bible about the sin of empathy. In fact, there's the complete opposite. Jesus talks regularly about dismantling systems and rebuking the seeking after wealth and power and dominance. And I don't know, it's just like this ridiculousness of it. I mean, empathy is a beautiful thing. It's like I said, it's putting yourself in another person's shoes, and that's essentially what it is. It's trying to understand someone where they're at. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that you can do on a surface, on a level that you could probably achieve, and it's tangible. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, I love that. To think that I'm new to the sin of empathy. I didn't realize I was committing that crime for so long. I want to apologize for those that I've hurt over the years who are listening right now.
20 lashes.
For real. What? No, it's just like
atonement.
Man, like, well, it goes back to the whole thing of the least of these, and by that I mean those who are considered least by society, aka least, to the Lord have so much value, and He wants them right at the front. Like, you come right over here and sit on my lap. This orphan child, So whoever that is in our time and place, and we're all looking at it, and what I notice is some people just won't say it. They're ignoring the truth. They're ignoring things, and to me that just gets to me. It's like I can't sit by and allow just to ignore that awkward, like going along with things thing like that. Just and it's like I don't know. I'm pretty taken by this whole thing that Bonhoeffer wrote an entire book on, that being The Cost of Discipleship, that book, which I still need to read, by the way. Curious to see.
Actually, if you want to read this, you could probably jump on. So the church that I attend, they're actually doing a book study on The Cost of Discipleship. They're about halfway through right now. But if you want to jump on, they skipped this last Sunday. So they do a virtual meeting every Sunday evening. So it'd be, I think it's like 6:30 Colorado time, so it'd be 8:30 your time if you want to. But it goes for about an hour. Yeah. And they just go over the book and they go over the chapter. Yeah, it corresponds with the message.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So I could ask the pastor that does it if we can get you on board, and I don't think you would have a problem with it.
What? I don't speak German. And it's only written. No, I'm just kidding.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah, I speak German when it comes to beer. No, just everything you said, like, I think is encapsulated in, like, it's like you're reiterating this verse, like it's Luke 9:23 says, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. What does it profit a man if he gains the entire world but loses or forfeits his soul or himself? I think I'm reading that wrong. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, like as far as any of this is concerned, like if that's not happening, it's just, to me, it's just blatant hypocrisy. It's the banging of a gong. It's the whole like Corinthians 13, if you don't have love, what gifts do you have? Like, what does it matter at that point? Like, and then back to the first and second commandment that he highlights with a big old highlighter. He goes like, well, what's the most important commandments? And he goes, the first one is to love your God with all your mind, all your heart, and all your soul. I think I'm saying that right.
Yes.
I might have had that out of order. And then the second one, love your neighbor as yourself, like the golden rule that's kind of like just embedded in all of our society's laws and rules, kind of funnel out of that ideology, and yet it's lost. Like, and yet that's the thing that gets forfeited. We're not to love our neighbor. Like, that's a serious problem, and that's a serious issue. Like, for those leaving the faith or having a problem with, or just in and out of the door, whoever anyone is at, or you're someone who's like, I don't know, in a movement of some sort, and you're not, maybe disregarding all that. I'm my thing, and this is me personally, I'll just say it, I'm not speaking for you or anyone, but like, if you're not reading these words and taking it to the point of like, okay, like, for example, if you're saying, I am a follower of Christ, but I don't read this and take this seriously. Now, hey, I think we've all been there. Like, I'm no saint, I've made my mini, but I'm just saying, like, that's where I'm at personally right now, right this moment, is you can't disregard that. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's the antithesis of the entire message.
I know.
Entire point.
And that's
sorry,
that's my whole point too. I mean, to piggyback off of what you're saying is, if we are Christ followers, I mean, think about that word, Christ followers. We follow Christ. We follow his parables, his teachings, the words he chose to say. And of course, that goes into apologetics and translations and all sorts of things like that, because translations say things differently, but you get just aside from translations, you get the crux of it. No matter what translation you read, you get the crux of what Jesus is talking about. And a lot of people, like especially in a lot of churches, you usually hear being taught on like Paul's teachings and Paul's writings, or like what are some of the authors, like Timothy, that was written by Paul, but the other authors,
the apostles,
the other writers of that. But at least my experience, I almost never hear Jesus' actual teachings in the church. The pastors from you're waving your finger, but yes,
I'm with you.
I'm sure you've paid attention and realized this too, is that pastors from behind the pulpit, they like to say the name of Jesus. They like to say, yes, this is who we follow. But then they never actually teach the teachings of Jesus. Or they might do like 3 or 4 or 5 times throughout the entire year. But then they focus more on like Paul's teachings, like in Timothy, you got Titus, you got Philippians, you got Corinthians, you got all these other books that aren't the Gospels.
Or the
that
book of First Enoch.
They talk about the Old Testament.
The church I go to is only doing the book of First Enoch per the Ethiopian Bible. No, I'm just kidding.
And especially in like fundamentalist spaces, they love to talk about like the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, or the book of they like to go back to Genesis, and this is the creation story. This is where we all originated from. And then you start looking at that deeper. It's like, well, Genesis was kind of ripped off from a lot, or not ripped off, but is inspired by like Enoch and a lot of those books and a lot of those cultural traditions from before the Hebrew Bible was even like thought up and created. So it's just one of those things. It's like, have we really lost the teachings of Jesus, and why and what have we lost when we don't instill that in our own lives, when we're not actually inundating ourselves with the messages of what Jesus taught? And I don't know. I think the church just has a big loss in that. I'd say a big F minus in that field, because we don't really see much of that actually being taught.
Yes. And going back to Ecclesiastes, is like, without what you just said right there, without those teachings of Jesus, like, what is the point? Even going back to Genesis, like, everything promises forward. It goes forward. Like, he will atone for this. Like, he will make this right. What's gone wrong will be made right. He comes and does that. And it's like taken for granted. They're like, we didn't even expect his first coming. Mm-hmm. And like, now we're in this point in history right now where it's like, I'm kind of scratching my head at the same,
So to go with this, so I think I started my Christian nationalist episode part 2 off with a quote from Karl Barth. So he basically says that he recognized that if you don't allow God to be God and tell you who God is through the cross-dead Christ, you inevitably like put your own fears, your own desires, your own everything in the void of where God should be in your life. And one of the people that I kind of listen to lately is Dan McClellan from the Data Over Dogma podcast and just social media and whatnot. He says, so if you don't allow room to let the Bible mean something that you disagree with, then you're not really concerned for the Bible. You're just concerned for the Bible as a proof text. You just want it to be the authorization for your own dogmas. So he's talking about like apologetics in particular, and how a lot of gripes with that. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of a cool little snippet.
Yeah, man, that was an awesome opener as well. Like, just that whole, I feel like you worded it, crafted the words so well, and just pieced it together.
I love Karl Barth. I love Tillich. Yeah. I love, Bonhoeffer and all them. So it's fun reading all that. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to end with something. So one thing that I just found out was, so we've been hearing from the grapevine that they're going to start rolling back like contraceptive care for sex prevention and everything in Indiana. I think it was a day or so ago. Indiana, they just rolled back like contraceptives, so like condoms and birth control and whatnot, so that it's not a necessity. Basically, you can't use like Medicaid and whatnot to get it. It's just one of those ways that they're trying to control the autonomy of women and make them a little more subservient to the male role. But aside from that, well, that's one of those things that we're seeing in Indiana. Indiana, I feel like, is kind of one of the first headliner states that's kind of kicking it off, but we're going to start seeing that probably roll across the entire America. And of course, everything else that's been coming out with like immigration raids and, the faith office or office of faith in the White House. But there's been a few good things with kind of slowing down the progress of everything. So February 3rd, a federal judge blocked Trump's attempt to freeze federal funding. February 5th, another judge paused his anti-trans prison policy, which is great. February 6th, courts halted Trump's massive buyout plan for over 2 million federal workers, and then also blocked his executive order ending birthright citizenship again, which is, great, because if you look at 1930s Germany, you'll see why that's important. Unlimited must access to Treasury records, which has been huge in the news. I don't know if you saw anything about that with Trump bringing in his interns, his 19 to 24-year-old interns.
19 to 24.
19 to 24.
It's the perfect age for that kind of activity, if you know what I mean. Have you ever seen the movie Night in the Museum? I mean, you got to be young and ready to jump in there.
Let's go party in the server room. So they brought, if you're unaware with what's happening, so they basically brought their personal servers in there and started transferring the information of all Americans. So that really, like, their social security numbers, their addresses, their legal names, any information that that's attached to you. They were able to download that onto their personal servers. A judge was able to block their access to it and put a stop to what they were doing. February 6th, Trump appointed judge stopped Trump from firing 2,200 U.S. aid employees, and also the DOJ agreed to temporarily protect the identities of FBI agents who investigated the January 6th riots. So all of this is still early rounds of legal battles, but so far the Trump administration hasn't won one of these yet, which is great news, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and a lot of this is going to do a lot of damage to a lot of people. The Trump administration keeps saying that they're winning, of course, but when it comes to courts, there's just been honestly nothing but losses. And we've seen this even with plain chicken with Mexico and Canada and even China with this tariff thing that they said they were going to put on it. I think it was February 1st, they put out tariffs on Canada as well as Mexico. Well, Canada and Mexico responded in kind and said that we're going to put tariffs on all of U.S. goods and everything going into U.S. And so Trump kind of backstepped that and kind of played it off as like, oh, I won, I got what I wanted, I put troops on the borders and everything, and a lot of people are like, no, you didn't get anything out of the deal. You got I'll censor myself. You got nothing. You got zilch, zero, because what you said they did was already agreed upon before this whole thing went down. There is some light in everything. There is some good news that's happening, that you know there are people that are stepping up and into the positions that to actually try to slow some of this stuff down that will actually cause a lot of harm. I know a lot of people that have drank the Kool-Aid, so to say, or I've talked to some of my friends, that they believe that there's actually a lot of good, that he's draining the swamp, which there's a lot of information of why that's not actually the case of what he's talking about, draining the swamp, but exposing a lot of QAnon. Exposing a lot of corruption in the government, which I'm all for. I mean, I'm all for transparency.
Right.
I think transparency
you know what's so funny? Sorry to interrupt.
There you go ahead.
You know what's so funny, when all these things are guised under good. Like, you and I could both 100% agree, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, corruption is bad, so let's try to get rid of it and make government good. You know, like, it's like, oh yeah, all right, where do I sign? You know, but then but everything that gets appealed towards a certain direction, like we're going to do all this, and like we're going to get rid of these immigrants, they're destroying this, and then you start rolling off the story of like Ohio, Springfield, or you put these little pockets of things where there might be some truth in it. That's the other thing, is like both sides fail to acknowledge that there's truth in a lot of these things, but it's the spinning. It's this whole like, let's take advantage of the people, put the wool over their eyes, and go, oh yeah. Like, you could do it with anything and everything, and it's just it's so mind-boggling. But yeah, like, to your point, there is good happening. Like, the courts are shutting down certain things that are complete overreaches of government. And by the way, it's like, I'm sorry, not to get on. I don't want to get on a rant, Chris.
No,
cut me off if you need to. But like, the whole thing is like, well, the very thing, like, say a conservative would want is for less government. A lot of the times, like, well, what's actually happening? Oh, power grabs, which is what? Exploding of government. So under the guise of, we shut down USAID, or we did this, or we shut down that, but then what else did you take? Oh, we're also going to invade like 20 different countries in the next 2 seconds. We're going to take Greenland. We're going to piss off Denmark. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And tariff. I'm sorry, I'm not. It's not computing. I'm sorry, I can't handle all this. What? Like, I'm smelling some yucky smells right now, and it's not. Yeah.
The poop has hit the fan. No, and that's the thing is like Trump has been touted as like anti-war, president,
anti-war.
and so far,
no wars under his watch.
Within these last 3 weeks, he's already bombed Somalia. He of course he went through this whole thing like, we're getting the ceasefire agreement with Palestine, but secretly, Netanyahu, you do whatever you want with the West Bank. But then, of course, now he's talking rhetoric of like, if these hostages aren't released from Hamas into Israel, then I'm gonna approve this backing out of the ceasefire. No mention of if Israeli hostages are released back to Palestine. It's
right.
It's this rhetoric of that, and it's and then he's talking about that he's going to own the Gaza Strip, and then Netanyahu's like,
yes,
good idea, sir, good idea.
Real estate.
Thumbs up, real estate. And
Gaza Alago.
he's like, you know what? I had this all wrong. You know what? We should have just opened our borders and let them leave, and just, they'll just go to Jordan. It's like, does anyone actually believe that this is actually like good stuff? They're basically talking about ethnically cleansing an entire population and furthering genocide and all this, and it's just yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, like there's almost like silence when things are uncomfortable and people are like, oh yeah, I voted for this guy, now some crazy stuff's happening. And like you were saying in your other podcast episode, like one of the questions being, well, do you know anyone in Black Lives Matter? And that one kind of convicted me a little bit, because there's times where I'm like, oh, a little bit, not really liking what I'm seeing over on this side of the aisle and some of the stuff that's coming out. But have I taken the time? Point being, it's like, and I'm going to flip that a little bit here. Like, there's some people on the right that, in all honesty, there's some really good people. And they're Trump voters. They're Trump supporters. They're good people who really do have good hearts. And what I'm seeing and I'm sensing, I've had a lot of conversations, is there's like a hesitation to get to the root of this problem. And like when you bring up the uncomfortable, like for example, I'll give you an example. A lot of people will say, in the last Trump presidency, like there was Operation Warp Speed, there was COVID, all the stuff that happened in 2020, and then Trump leaves office, right? In 2021, Biden takes over. The last thing he does on the last day of his office was to give Dr. Fauci an award, commendation. I don't know how significant it was, whatever, but either way. Well, people who are like, oh yeah, put Fauci under bars, and maybe he deserves it. He killed some dogs and stuff, or whatever, I don't know. There's some allegations out there, but like, to the point, it's like, well, there's just so much and disinformation cycling where people don't know what up and down is. And I'm seeing this like where it's like there's no moral high ground, because the moment you take that high ground, something shifts, and that guy that you love so much, the person you put up on this pedestal that's supposed to save the day, is suddenly like a demon. But they can't admit it, and I guess that's the word for that is cognitive dissonance. And I've honestly been seeing it in real time, and it's like, the last thing, and these are people that are my friends, and I'm like, man, there's nothing I can say. Like, either I'll piss you off by probing and pushing the button, which I've already done, or it's just like, you have to see, the people's eyes have to literally open, and when they're like, that's the whole thing. I think it was Mark Twain that said this: it's easier to lie to a person than convince them that they've been lied to. Mm-hmm. And man, that's like from the 1800s. That's Mark Twain for you right there. And it's like, whoa. Mm-hmm. I don't know how the veil gets lifted, and we've all gone through it. We've had things where we've believed stupid stuff, I'm sure too, and then you're like, oh, okay, I was duped. And you're either angry or you're like laughing about it, like, oh, how dumb. Oh my gosh, But yeah.
Well, I should probably give the definition of cognitive dissonance in case anybody listening doesn't actually know the definition of it. So by the Oxford Dictionary, it is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you're presented new information that contradicts the deeply held thing that has given you comfort for so long, and it's now jarring. You're given this new information. You have to process that. You have two choices. You can either ignore it because it's dissonant. It's like someone hitting the piano on the wrong notes. It's dissonant. Or you literally go and do what I see you doing, which is so commendable, where you've just you're doing all these, you're talking to so many different people and being willing to listen and process that information and, have these dialogues, which is healing. And it's it brings people hope.
Yeah. So another thing that Dan McClellan brought up, so he was talking about within apologetics, but I feel like this fits with just this cognitive dissonance is when people start bringing up, I have this belief and I'm not sure that the data supports my belief. So then in that case, you have to make a case that requires you ginning up the tiniest little sliver of your idea, not being impossible, because that gives you an opening where you can justify it by saying, hey, at least it isn't impossible. and then you convince yourself. It's that inconsistency. It's like, I'm going to make up my own narrative, and I'm going to do these mental gymnastics to make my side of the story fit, even if the data doesn't support it.
Yeah. That's eye-opening. Appreciate that, man. It's cool to, just being honest and like just saying, I don't know. And I don't have anything nearly as like clairvoyant as what you're talking about, but like just in general in life, like I've been asking that question, like, what am I doing wrong, so to speak, or like, what do I need? Am I missing something, God? Like, am I supposed to be doing something else with my life? Like, as you know, like my career has been just completely dismantled over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Hope has been very lost in my career field. Mm-hmm. And most people, like 80%, aren't working. People are losing their houses and all this crazy stuff. But I'm like, I should be more afraid. I should be more depressed. But like, I should be doing these things that like, all these crazy things. But like, well, this is good. So maybe something's going right. But like, I'm also like, what am I? Anyway, to your point, I don't have an answer, and none was given to me. And I've told a lot of wise people, and no one's been like, this is what you're doing. This is what you must do, or this is the thing. So I guess that's just maybe a sign that you're supposed to hang in there.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
mutually.
the message. Hang in there.
Right.
Not saying that'll get better, but hang in there, hold hope.
And that's the thing too. And I always hate this. And not that I was trying to avoid this because we just let it free flow tonight, but concerning what's to come, what's happening. And I'm more and more convinced that we're getting close to the end. And I don't know what that means. Like, it could be like the actual end, or it's close to something in a few years, or not a few years. I don't know. I don't have anything more concrete. There's no evidence. There's nothing. But there's some things that like people I follow and things that are like pointing things out. And these aren't the usual Christian eschatology types. This isn't the stuff where it's like blah, 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 where there's like 9,000 voices all saying the same generalized crap of preacher of rapture and whatever floats people's boats that makes them happy. It's stuff that's like exactly. I sent you a clip, and whether you watched it or not, don't even worry. But basically the gist of that guy was like, and this is kind of like the kind of guy you'd expect to be a fundamentalist Baptist crazy conservative from like Idaho. And he has that voice, and you would just think, oh, AM radio, all you can think of is, make America. But no. Everything he's saying is like, look, this guy is the Antichrist, Trump, that is. Mm-hmm. And everything he's doing is coming true. Like all these weird things of him blaspheming, of him like, right now, I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned this earlier, I just thought of it, but there's a sculpture in Mar-a-Lago or whatever of a bunch of $100 bills, but instead of saying in God they trust, it says in Trump we trust, and Trump literally owns this sculpture. Mm. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is an actual sculpture, and it has actual gold gonads, junk hanging from it, and like different, like the hooves are actual gold and just weird crap like that. Or his Ark of the Covenant that was in Mar-a-Lago that was made of like literally like, I don't know what the dollar amount was. It was like something crazy, like $24 million worth of gold was put into this literal replica maybe? I don't know if it's real, of the Ark of the Covenant, and it got shipped off to Israel recently.
Oh, really?
And it's just something crazy. I don't know if you heard that one. Yeah, it was just like some crazy stuff. Like,
also, I think recently, on the floor of the Wall Street stock market, they essentially built like a little like shrine to Trump, and with the mega hats, has like a gold plated framed picture of Trump with like some like other Trump paraphernalia and stuff like that around it. Yeah. So
gross. Very gross.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like,
it's like you see the whole like the idea of like the golden calf in, was it Genesis or Exodus? I think it was Exodus.
One of the two.
Yeah. I mean, old Moses films.
Oh, yeah. There's no shortage of the whole face swapping to Trump thing.
Yeah.
He parted the seas. He's making a way. And then there's a lot of stuff where it's like they'll literally use the words of Jesus and like put it on things subtly. And there's no alarm bells going off with like the people that I would expect, like my uncle who's a strong Christian, charismatic guy, or there's like the other, like all these people I know who are like embedded into the faith that have actually shepherded me over the years. And I'm like, why are you guys just like pissed off? I'm like, I'm freaking out over here. Like, this is so wild, but it's so wild that I almost like my brain is just like, okay, all I can do is laugh. Like, this is so dumb and so crazy, or maybe I'm crazy, but that's basically it. Like,
I think all of us are a little crazy. No, this is one of those things.
Paula
like
White. If you're not laughing about that and seeing how absolutely sorry, fucking absurd.
Yeah.
Paula White becoming that position, when you look at her track record and things she said, it's like she divorced she got rid of her old man, her husband, for a guy from Journey or whatever. Like, just the craziest stuff that you're like, what? Come on. You're making that up. No, it's true. It's like, oh no. Does anyone care? No one cares. Okay, I'm going crazy. All right. Sorry.
Yeah,
I have a problem with that.
A lot of it's frightening. I actually did listen to that clip that you had mentioned.
Do you really?
I listened to it. This is one of those things, kind of like flat Earth and everything, that I actually disagree with you, and I actually disagree with a lot of people on like the end times, tribulation, Book of Revelation. I don't really buy it that there's prophecy of end times, at least with the Bible. I think that the Book of Revelations is hidden imagery referring to figures and things happening at the time when it was written. I'm more of that thought process. And I grew up with the idea that we're going to be raptured up and we have to be ready at all times. The whole idea of holding your lantern and not taking your eyes off it and stuff like that. But
don't blow out my lantern.
But I because I grew up in it and kind of like to my whole point, like I find that the theories about flat Earth and everything interesting. I don't buy it myself, but like I find the whole idea of like tribulation and revelation and like being raptured in the end times and that whole field very interesting. I see it more of as a literary trope, like a narrative, and I don't know. I think it's also been weaponized in the church against people to keep them subservient to the higher authority. Which, when I say higher authority, it's not God in that sense. It's those that are in charge of the church, the leaders of the church, and because of the marriage of religion and government, it's these political leaders. So it's this, you have to be vigilant and to be ready at all times. You have to be a good Christian. You have to be, you have to do all these laws that we tell you that are the good things to do and the bad things to do. And if you don't do them, you're a sinner and you're going to go to hell and you're an apostate and all this stuff. So I appreciate that, and like definitely resonate with like your upbringing and just the myriad of voices and like these conditions that are put in place, and even like the super ultra, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, like the Left Behind visualizations of what that means in that verse, that apocalyptic literature metaphor is a helicopter, a military helicopter, and then you see this like delineation in the last couple hundred years where it's like preacher rapture, Israel, temple being built, literal. And of course, I'm going to be the guy that crashes the party with more literalism, or even more extreme literalism, probably biblical literalism. Yeah, but something you said earlier too, I wanted to mention, or that you kind of struck me when you said like being really upset by the visions, whether or not they're prophecies or not, or just bad feelings, vibes, or things that are like maybe, I don't know, clairvoyance of some sort. Because there's a lot of versions of things. I don't think everything's, again, nothing is black and white. And there's a lot of just, and a lot of people, let me give you an example. Like old Betty from the church pew, when you tell her that about the visions, is going to say, well, let me lay hands on you and just, you have the gift of prophecy. So you need to go. And it's just like, it's just this only one track mind. I'm going to insert slogan here. I have such a biblical lack of understanding of anything, because most people don't read their Bibles. Like most people who are Christian, Catholic, everything, all the different things, the common thing is like they just let the pastor figure it out, sadly. But sorry, I was just going to say, like when you said the troubling things about visions, like I was just reading, I think it's Daniel, first few chapters, like basically, all the stuff happens with like the Babylonian captivity. Nebuchadnezzar, he helps read the visions of the Nebuchadnezzar and does all the crap. And he's, you're given all this authority. But then like later on, I think it's chapter 7 is when things get really crazy. And this is like Daniel's visions of what he sees the future. And the angel comes to him and it's like he records it. And there's a lot of ties into that to the end. And like
Revelation, which was given to John way later, obviously. So this is Daniel's vision. But then what's really interesting is I think it's chapter 8 or 9 or whatever. But there's a whole paragraph where he just goes, he's so troubled that he's sick, and I don't think he can like function for a few days. Like, he's so messed up over it that like he's paraphrasing quite a bit there, but it just kind of made me think. And then it also said something else that not a lot of people take credit of. It says these are sealed until the end, whatever the end is. But a lot of people have it all figured out. I don't have anything figured out. Yeah. Which is
I'd love to
actually.
get into all this. Maybe we do a whole episode on... No, maybe the next episode we tackle flat Earth. Yeah. We tackle apologetics.
Hang on. Yeah.
And we tackle Enoch. You're going to find Enoch super fascinating. I don't know how much you've looked into it.
I want to hear your take on this.
I'm still getting to the actual book of Enoch, but I've got some notes like on like Enoch and everything like that. I think the Bible Project had come out with some stuff. They did over the Dogma. They with Dan McClellan and Dan Beecher.
Yep.
There's a bunch of like resources online that talks about it. So it's
definitely gotten pretty popular.
I could go on a whole thing with this, but yeah, maybe we'll plan like a whole nother.
That'd be fun.
Another thing on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my notes, man. I have.
Let me guess. You only touched about like 10% of them, right? Of your notes. Or
yeah. So I've already recorded an episode. Do you remember how my iPad stopped recording after an hour?
Yes.
So the same thing happened.
Felt so bad for you, man.
Episode that I was talking about demons, and I actually go into like Enoch a little bit and all that kind of stuff.
When was this?
I recorded about a week and a half ago, and it only recorded about an hour. But in my notes, like I know where we stopped, and I'm like, hey, do you want to do a part 2? And he's like, yeah, let's do a part 2 because we didn't even get through everything anyway. So I was like, let's do part 2. I know we left off.
Oh my gosh,
we can just kick it off from there, and like even if we don't mention the same things that we mentioned, what we thought we recorded, like we can just wing it and just try to go with it again. And so he's all for that. I think we're going to try to plan maybe next week or something like that. But
you know what?
So that part 2
who knows, it'll probably be even better.
But I pulled some of my notes from Enoch from that talk into here. But yeah, we never talked about here. But then I pulled even more notes. So I've even got more on this note slide that I have. I should almost like send you.
Oh, it's exciting.
What I have, but
please, yeah, do it. If you don't, I'm trying to learn as well. Like my point on Enoch is like I have more questions. I have a lot of good questions, but like I have some takes on it. But then like at the end of the day, it's like there is, yeah. I love that. It's like tying it back to Jesus. He goes in and he says like an idolatrous generation looks for a sign and forces like the sign of Jonah. He uses like. But yeah, when they have me right now, they have something much greater than Solomon. Like the Queen of the South came down to visit Solomon because he was such a big deal. She came across the entire known world, Queen Sheba. But like here I am, and no one's really paying attention to anything. No one knows who I truly am. It was my true nature, I'm doing miracles, but no one's seeing the miracles, even though thousands are affected by it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like an adult, that's the thing with like Jonah. They wanted this and that, and Jonah was like mad that Nineveh like did the right thing and like changed their heart, and like he's mad about it. Oh, I don't know. It's just crazy, man. Like, yeah. Well, got to find something crazy. Oh, look, miracle spring water. Let's market that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in the NAR and the New Apostolic Reformation, like in the charismatic craziness world, where they're like, I'll get together with some of them, we'll sit around the campfire, and they immediately revert to the demon talk. They want to talk about like all the crazy deliverances, and I don't know if you've been in those talks recently or if you've had any of those in the past, AG experience.
I can get into it.
Yeah. And and some of them, like I truly believe some of those guys are being honest. Like they're like, one guy was saying, yeah, a weird demon skull came in above my wife's head and hovered, and I casted it out, and I did all these crazy things, and it went away, and we prayed, and crazy miracles happened. But like some of them are so like, basically the point I'm like, not what they're saying, it's their motive. It's the whole like, we have to prove God through these crazy demon things, even if we have to like 90% of it's made up, or even if 90% of these deliverances aren't real, or exorcisms aren't actually real, they're showbiz. We have to do all this stuff because it's the only way to validate the faith that I don't really have. Yeah, like, yeah, it was just wild, like to think that you'd have to like fake it. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to validate it. Like,
Did you know that so speaking of exorcisms, did you know that the majority of exorcisms performed in the world are actually done by Pentecostal and evangelical Christians?
As opposed to like what, like the Catholic Church, you're saying?
The Catholic Church,
or like, or just normal, not normal, but like mainline Christianity. You mean like you're saying mostly it's happening
exorcisms.
Yeah. No, I believe you. I believe that.
So
that makes sense. That kind of makes sense.
I actually brought this up in my demon talk. So Andrew Chestnut,
this is a huge fascination.
So Professor Andrew Chestnut, he said the great majority of exorcisms that happen on any given day across the globe are not Catholic, they're Pentecostal. As Father Vincent Lampert told Catholic Answers, it's not just about casting evil out. One has to want to invite God in. The danger, I think, is that exorcists today are being viewed as magicians, an online article.
Yeah.
And then he said the growing demand for exorcism seems also to correlate neatly with our modern Western longing for alternative healing and for quick fixes. What if emotional distress could be expelled as decisively as a demon thrown back into the lake of fire? But exorcism, should be noted, is not some spiritual form of Ozempic.
Wow. Right? That's pretty common, I think, to like just blame a thing and take yourself out of that equation. Like, even like just in normal examples, like, the reason I cheated on my wife was, or I decided to do a horrible thing to someone was because, it's just the demons, an exterior force and something else that I can like pin on, or, like it's pretty like, it's in our vernacular as a religious society. Like, it's like, devil made me do it. That whole concept. Even anger is an exterior force. It's not a thing, but truly, when you look at it from a psychiatric and a holistic view, anger is a thing. It's a really weird emotion because like happiness and all the things can create physical sensation, but anger is the most insane one because you actually feel palpitations. You hear your heart. People talk about their blood, or like, their whatever cholesterol or whatever blood. I can't think right now, but it's like, it's a physical manifestation. It's almost like, so I can see how it gets hijacked into like, a demon, but like, it's truly a good thing. Like anger is just, it's like, why are you angry? And like, what is it like? Cause like we're told like God is angry at certain things and like acts out in anger in just ways. Like, and like, we're like anger either is because I'm angry because there's something wrong about something, or maybe our relationship or whatever. Like, there's something that's just not right and needs to be made right. So I'm angry about it. Like, or it's because I want something, or like there's another ulterior thing. I don't know, but I was talking to there's a whole article on that was really interesting.
Well, do you have any other thoughts on any of this?
No, I wish I did. Right off the top of my head, no. No, this has been awesome just to sit with you and all these things. Like, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know we had a bunch of stuff on our notes that we didn't get to. I know I'm sure you do too, and I do too. Save them.
Bad news horse didn't get talked about.
The bad news horse. Sorry, bad news horse. There's some bad news for you.
Get your tail out of here. Get it out. No, quit whipping. No, I don't want you to poop in here. It's a garage. I've deported him to the barn.
We'll definitely plan another episode, though. There's plenty to talk about. We're going to more about apologetics, Enoch. If you even want to talk about flat Earth and everything like that, I know that's a topic that I know we've talked about in a little bit of a length. I know I personally disagree with you on a lot of the stuff that you brought up, but I think it is very fascinating, like the stuff that you talk about too. So even that kind of stuff would be a fascinating topic. So let's definitely plan something else.
Absolutely.
And maybe we'll just call it here. And Zach, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming out and talking all this.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. It's been awesome.
That's it for today's episode of Grub and Grace. I truly hope you enjoyed our discussion. If you like the content that we produce, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It would really help us out a lot. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and celebrate the traditions that bring us all together.